Lewis Hamilton betrays Ferrari to rejoin Mercedes before the Singapore Grand Prix. Stay tuned until the end to uncover when Ferrari will leak the news and be the first to know. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking. From the moment quiet murmurs began slipping through the corridors of the paddock, people laughed them off as idle gossip, too outrageous to be true. The idea that Lewis Hamilton, the man Ferrari had unveiled as their great hope, the driver who was supposed to return championships to Maranello, could already be working to tear down his glittering deal seemed absurd. But the whispers refused to die. Each week they grew stronger, whispered in motorhomes, exchanged over late-night dinners, passed between mechanics and journalists who sensed something seismic brewing. Slowly the impossible became undeniable. Hamilton was maneuvering in the shadows, aligning once more with Toto Wolff, the man with whom he had conquered the sport, plotting an astonishing return to Mercedes. This was not a sudden betrayal, not an act born from raw emotion. It was a plan crafted with care, driven by cold calculation and a fierce desire to control the final chapters of his career. Hamilton had endured too many weekends of disappointment, too many promises from Ferrari that never translated into results. Strategy blunders had cost him podiums, internal miscommunication had undermined trust, and the car itself failed to deliver the pace needed to fight for titles. With each misstep, the faith that he had placed in Maranello crumbled. He knew his time was limited, and he refused to let it slip away chasing dreams that no longer felt realistic. Quietly, he made it clear to Wolff that the door was open, and the man who once built an empire with him was ready to walk through it. Their conversations carried the weight of history. They met in discreet locations, far from the noise of the media, their faces hidden in crowds where no one would think to look. When distance kept them apart, they spoke through encrypted channels long after midnight, voices steady, words deliberate. For Wolff, the proposition was irresistible. He had always insisted that Hamilton was the most complete driver to ever take a Mercedes seat, and the thought of bringing him back ignited a fire he hadn't felt since the team's dominant years. For Hamilton, it was about more than nostalgia. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking. It was about trust, structure, and surrounding himself with a team capable of delivering under pressure. Money was inevitable, but neither wanted it to define the deal. Hamilton sought recognition, not extravagance. Wolff wanted balance, not headlines. Negotiations stretched for weeks, every figure examined, every clause scrutinized. They finally agreed on $20 million per season, a number far lower than what Hamilton once commanded but richer in symbolism. It spoke of respect, commitment, and focus on performance rather than wealth. More importantly, the contract was layered with incentives, ensuring that victories, podiums, and a return to championship contention would directly elevate his earnings. In that structure, Hamilton's fate and Mercedes' success became inseparable. The news has sent the sport into turmoil. Ferrari, who once paraded Hamilton as the savior of their legacy, now faces the humiliation of losing him before he delivers the glory they promised. Within Mercedes, anticipation is mounting, though uncertainty hangs in the air over which driver will step aside to make space. Rivals are uneasy, calculating how Hamilton's presence could tilt the balance of power back toward the Silver Arrows. Fans are split. Some celebrate his boldness in taking control of his destiny, while others accuse him of betraying Ferrari too soon. The debate rages across social media, each camp convinced they hold the truth, every comment fueling the fire. Hamilton, meanwhile, remains unmoved. He has never been one to let others decide his story. He refuses to fade quietly, refuses to let frustration write the ending of a career built on determination and resilience. By reuniting with Wolff, he is reclaiming control, seizing one last chance to chase greatness. For Wolff, it is the opportunity to rebuild a dynasty, to restore Mercedes' dominance, and to reignite a partnership that once defined the sport. And for Formula One, it is pure drama, ambition, betrayal, redemption, and risk woven together into a saga that will be remembered long after the engines fall silent. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking. The most volatile dimension of the entire affair was not the legal loopholes or the carefully worded exit strategies but the human sacrifice inside Mercedes, where careers collided and futures were rewritten in the space of a single conversation. At the heart of the storm was Andrea Kimi Antonelli, the young Italian nurtured for years as the jewel of Mercedes' Academy, the prodigy groomed step by step to inherit the throne. Every race he contested, every podium he secured, every move up the ladder was part of a grand design carefully orchestrated by Toto Wolff himself. Inside Brackley, Antonelli was never seen as merely another junior. He was the one destined to continue the dynasty, the figure who symbolized a seamless transition into a new era after Hamilton's eventual departure. But when Hamilton unexpectedly became available, the entire blueprint shattered. Wolff, whose reputation has been built on separating emotion from ruthless pragmatism, made his decision without hesitation. He arranged a private meeting with Antonelli, and those close to the situation describe it as cold in its precision, stripped of pretense, and unforgettable in its finality. Wolff laid out the truth directly. The seat that seemed promised to him was no longer his. Hamilton would return, and there was no space for compromise. He emphasized that Formula One does not forgive hesitation, that when a seven-time champion capable of shifting the competitive balance stands at the door, no team can afford to pause. With Red Bull stretching its dominance, McLaren growing more dangerous with every upgrade, and Ferrari threatening resurgence, Mercedes had to strike back with the biggest weapon it could deploy. Hamilton was not just another option. He was the only move that could immediately swing the balance of power. For Antonelli, the blow was brutal. He sat through the discussion with composure, his silence heavy with the weight of lost opportunity. Though crushed, he answered with dignity, acknowledging that Hamilton's return would not simply change Mercedes' trajectory but shake the entire sport to its core. Those who know him say the disappointment ran deep, yet his reaction revealed a maturity beyond his years, a recognition that sometimes even destiny has to wait. While Mercedes executed its maneuver with chilling efficiency, Maranello found itself blindsided. Behind closed doors, Hamilton's legal team had been dissecting his Ferrari contract, and hidden within its labyrinth of clauses they discovered a secret path, an escape mechanism allowing him to walk away before September 30th without facing devastating financial consequences. This clause was invisible to most, buried so deeply that only a handful of trusted figures within Hamilton's camp were aware of it. Once uncovered, it became the lever with which Hamilton pried himself out of Ferrari's grip. By the time Ferrari's leadership realized what was happening, the plan was already irreversible. The Scuderia, still staggering from years of instability and desperate for stability, suddenly faced the prospect of losing its prized star before his first campaign was even complete. The humiliation was staggering. For a team that had sold Hamilton's arrival as the dawn of redemption, his imminent departure felt like betrayal of the highest order. For the Tifosi, the heartbreak was immediate and raw. Fans who had envisioned Hamilton returning Ferrari to the summit, delivering victories at Monza, and finally breaking the championship drought that had stretched since Raikkonen's triumph in 2007, were left staring at the ashes of their dream. Across Italy and beyond, the sense of betrayal burned fiercely. On social media, forums, and airwaves, anger and despair dominated the conversation. Supporters described it as treason, a wound deeper than any loss on track. What was meant to be the rebirth of Ferrari glory had collapsed into a nightmare before it truly began. As Ferrari reels from the fallout, Mercedes moves with renewed purpose, seizing the chance to reshape its future instantly. And in the eye of the storm is Hamilton, once again proving that his influence transcends the racetrack. His timing, his command of politics, and his ability to bend circumstances to his will remind the world that Formula One is as much about strategy and power as it is about speed. In a sport defined by fractions of a second, Hamilton has once more demonstrated that he can shift the balance of history itself, leaving devastation in Maranello and a surge of hope in Brackley as the landscape of the championship changes forever. Mercedes has been orchestrating this move with a level of quiet determination that feels almost cinematic, carefully piecing together a comeback that seems destined to dominate headlines and unsettle rivals. Behind the sealed doors of Brackley, the work has been relentless, every department focused on ensuring that when Lewis Hamilton steps back into the W16, it will feel like he never left. Toto Wolff has driven the project forward with his trademark intensity, making sure no detail is overlooked. The cockpit is being refined with an almost obsessive touch, sculpted to Hamilton's exact body measurements and driving habits. The steering wheel is being tailored to mirror the muscle memory he built over years of victories, the seat is being recontoured to fit him like armor, and the pedal box is being adjusted with millimeter precision so that every movement aligns with his instincts. It is a process designed not just for comfort, but for total immersion, where Hamilton becomes one with the car from the very first out lap. The revival of engineers who once worked hand in hand with him is equally symbolic and practical. These are specialists who know his language, who remember how he communicates feedback in half-sentences and instinctive gestures. They have opened archives filled with telemetry from the days when Hamilton and Mercedes rewrote the history books, using that material to create a bridge between past success and present opportunity. Data models that capture the essence of his driving style are being recalibrated with modern tools, blending old mastery with new innovation. It is as if the team has summoned back not only the people but the spirit of an era that defined dominance. Simulators are now pulsing with activity, running endless cycles designed around Hamilton's fingerprints. Engineers have embedded his driving patterns into the virtual car, reconstructing how he manages tire degradation over long stints, how he times his energy recovery to attack at the perfect moment, and how he adapts instinctively when grip shifts under extreme conditions. The result is that the W16 in simulation already reacts as if Hamilton is in command, even before he physically touches the wheel. The feedback loop is so refined that by the time he arrives, the car will almost anticipate him, eliminating the transition period that most drivers would require. The choice of Singapore as the stage for this return elevates the entire operation to something greater than sport. Marina Bay is one of Formula One's most punishing circuits, demanding more from both driver and machine than nearly any other venue. The heat, the relentless sequence of corners, the unyielding walls, and the mental exhaustion create a crucible where only the best emerge unscathed. It is a race where champions prove themselves, and Hamilton has done so repeatedly, producing performances that stand as benchmarks for precision and resilience. Under the neon glow of the city, with the skyline towering above and the crowd buzzing in anticipation, his reappearance in silver will be more than just a return, it will be a declaration. The psychological weight of that image cannot be underestimated. Rivals who thought they had moved past Hamilton will find themselves staring at lap times that remind them of his presence. Teams will recognize that their battle is no longer just against each other, but once again against the combination of Hamilton and Mercedes, a partnership that once dominated the sport with merciless consistency. Every sector time in Singapore will carry more meaning than numbers alone. It will carry history, expectation, and the undeniable aura of a driver who refuses to fade. This moment has been engineered with precision, staged with intent, and charged with emotion. It is not merely about a legend reclaiming his seat, it is about shifting the balance of the season, forcing every rival to adjust, and reigniting the fire that has always defined Hamilton's career. When the lights shine over Marina Bay and he takes to the streets once more in silver, it will feel less like a return and more like a storm that has been gathering quietly, finally breaking with unstoppable force. The shockwaves of Lewis Hamilton's decision to return to Mercedes have already spread far beyond the garages and pit lanes, creating a tension that grips every corner of the sport. This is not being seen as just another switch between teams, nor the simple continuation of a legendary career, but as a move designed to alter the balance of power. Conversations ripple through the paddock in hushed tones, journalists circle like hawks, and rival engineers quietly adjust their strategies in anticipation of what this means. Ferrari, who had envisioned themselves as the guardians of Hamilton's legacy, are left grappling with the sting of betrayal. Their public stance will be polished and measured. They will insist this was always part of the sport's natural cycle, that their long-term vision remains intact. But behind the closed doors of Maranello, the sense of disappointment is heavy. They have lost more than a driver. They have lost an opportunity to define an era, and that realization cuts deeper than any press release can disguise. Mercedes, by contrast, embraces the moment with purpose. For them, Hamilton's return is not sentimental, nor is it a farewell gesture. It is a weapon. It forces rivals to look over their shoulders, unsettles Red Bull's dominance, throws Ferrari into uncertainty, and makes every other contender recalibrate their ambitions. The move itself carries psychological weight. Hamilton has always thrived on pressure, and now he brings that intensity back into a team eager to prove it is still capable of rewriting history. Beyond the sport itself, the consequences are already visible. Global brands that had shifted attention elsewhere are aligning themselves once again with Mercedes, attracted by the magnetism of a narrative built on resilience and resurgence. Broadcasters prepare for unprecedented audiences, fully aware that Hamilton's name commands global attention, turning every Grand Prix into a spectacle that transcends racing. Even rival team bosses, so often unshaken by pressure, are privately unsettled by the ripple effects of a comeback that has already begun to reshape the psychological terrain. Hamilton's approach in public has been masterfully calculated. He has offered only fragments, small hints about unfinished business, and subtle remarks about timing, enough to ignite speculation but never enough to reveal his full intentions. That deliberate control over the narrative is no accident. It builds intrigue, keeping the spotlight firmly fixed on him without revealing the storm gathering behind the scenes. Privately, however, the image is very different. Those close to him describe a man recharged, sharper, and more focused than he has been in years. Training sessions are relentless, his conversations with engineers are exhaustive, and his hunger to compete burns with an intensity that silences any suggestion he is returning for anything less than victory. He is not stepping back into Mercedes for symbolic reasons. He is returning to fight, to prove that his legacy is not static, and to silence those who dared to question whether his desire had diminished. For Toto Wolff, this is more than a reunion. It is a rekindling of a bond that once defined an era of dominance. Their relationship, built on years of triumphs and forged in the crucible of setbacks, carries with it a sense of inevitability. Together, they represent not only strategy and skill but a partnership that reshaped Formula One. To see Hamilton back in silver sends a message that cannot be ignored. Mercedes is not done. The decision reaffirms their authority, reignites belief within the team, and forces every rival to acknowledge that the combination of Wolff and Hamilton has the potential to once again bend the sport to their will. Their shared ambition is not to compete quietly in the shadows but to return to the forefront, dismantling the plans of their rivals and reclaiming the spotlight that once belonged to them. Every passing day amplifies the anticipation. Fans across continents wait with restless excitement, sponsors prepare to ride the wave of momentum, and media outlets sharpen narratives that promise unprecedented drama. Within rival garages, nervous conversations continue as strategists realize that every carefully laid plan must now account for Hamilton's re-emergence. This is no ordinary comeback. It is about legacy, pride, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. It is the story of a driver who refuses to fade, of a team unwilling to accept decline, and of a sport about to be reshaped by the return of a force that thrives on rewriting history. The feeling is undeniable. Formula One has entered a new chapter, and the presence of Hamilton ensures it will be defined by tension, spectacle, and the hunger of a legend who refuses to let his story end quietly. The Marina Bay night glows with neon brilliance, the humid air thick with tension as engines scream in the distance and thousands of voices blend into a restless roar. Under the floodlights, a moment unfolds that feels almost unreal, a twist so dramatic that even the most imaginative fan would never have dared to predict it. Lewis Hamilton, who not long ago was paraded as Ferrari's shining hope, the figure destined to carry Maranello back to its lost heights, has broken free from the script. The red that once wrapped him in glory has been cast aside, and in its place, the iconic silver and black return, fitting him like a second skin. At his side once again is Toto Wolff, calm but fierce, orchestrating every detail with the precision of a conductor preparing for a symphony of dominance. The reaction is explosive. In Italy, passion turns to pain as Tifosi feel the ground ripped out from beneath them. They had believed Hamilton would be the one to restore the magic of the Scuderia, to lead a new golden era, but instead they are left with anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. In the halls of Maranello, whispers of betrayal echo louder than the sound of any engine. Meanwhile, across the world, Mercedes fans feel the rush of resurrection, a surge of hope as their champion returns to the car that made him unstoppable. For them, this night is redemption, proof that legends never fade, that greatness can be reborn in the very arena where it once ruled. Rivals sense the shift instantly. Verstappen, once untouchable, now faces the return of the only adversary who has unsettled him on the biggest stages. Russell, who thought leadership of Mercedes was his to claim, must confront the harsh reality of sharing a garage with a figure whose presence commands shadows too vast to escape. Leclerc, left behind at Ferrari, bears the heaviest weight, knowing that the man meant to be his ally has left him isolated under the crushing burden of expectation. The cameras lock onto Hamilton as he pulls down his visor, his grip tightening on the wheel, his posture radiating calm yet burning with intent. This is no farewell, no nostalgia. This is business, vengeance, hunger, and ambition woven into a single night. The contract worth $20 million is not a gesture, it is a declaration. The Marina Bay circuit, lined with unforgiving walls and unforgiving corners, offers the perfect crucible for this comeback. Under these lights, every mistake is punished, every ounce of courage tested, every lap demanding perfection. And Hamilton thrives when the stakes burn hottest. Tonight is not merely a race. It is an earthquake shaking the foundations of the sport, a rewriting of loyalties and legacies, a collision of betrayal and resurrection in the most spectacular theater Formula One can offer. Singapore is no longer just another chapter in the season, it is the stage of a shock that will be spoken about for decades, the night when Hamilton returned to Mercedes, when Wolff reignited the fire, and when the sport itself delivered a drama so intoxicating it will live forever in the memory of everyone who witnessed it.